You got it. Okay. So, this is crazy. This weather. I hope it will be able to record our voices.
True Floridian style.
Yeah.
It's raining. Like, we're on brand.
I like that. That is true.
Yeah, we're on brand.
Are we already streaming, Bill?
Facebook is asking more questions, or does it just start? It says it's going, so if it doesn't, I'll just add it later to Facebook. So,
Well, come join us, Bill.
all right.
Yay! And would you like to introduce our guest today?
I would. So, welcome to Floridian. And we're here today with Alexandra Nee, of course.
Just always here.
She's always here. She came with the house.
Yeah,
this
literally.
particular house,
Yeah, this particular house.
which is a shed.
which is a shed. She came with the shed. And but we're here with Michelle Calloway, who's an artist and filmmaker here in Jacksonville, Florida. And we're going to talk about making movies here in Florida and the process that she's used so far in her experience, and whatever else comes up.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
On this stormy morning.
We're on brand. We live in Florida. The
Podcast
is, Floridians.
That's right.
And of course it rains every day.
Yeah. And
Sure.
it's like out of the blue. It was like quite nice.
I had to go back into my house to get my umbrella to then leave.
No, because it just started
It
so
came. It
intensely.
just started falling.
Yeah.
Cleansing.
Exactly.
I love the rain. It's my favorite weather.
It feels calming, but it's loud.
It is. I think it's getting closer. Yeah, but that's why it's so loud.
For the benefit of everyone else, I turned down the noise suppression so they can get
okay.
it.
There's like,
They can
what
get
are
a
they
nice-
talking about? What noise? What storm?
Hopefully they can hear it. Yeah.
You guys might not hear it, but we hear it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when I was in high school, my dad got hit by lightning, so I had like a weird...
Oh my gosh, how badly?
He didn't get hit, he grounded it. So we were at my cabin in northern Minnesota, and he was putting up shutters on a building, and I was standing next to him, and he was holding the building, and there was metal on the building, and it grounded through him and threw him off a rock.
Oh my gosh.
And he was completely unconscious.
If my dad grounded lightning, I would have taken him grounding me much more seriously.
It was crazy. It was the craziest
how did
experience
he-
I've ever
I
had.
don't know, what was the, how long was he unconscious?
He was only unconscious for, maybe 30 seconds. But because of all the force, if you're around that loud of an experience, you feel it. I mean, it went through, I felt it.
I imagine it's
Yeah.
like
How
electroshock,
far away were
right?
you?
I was 4 or 5 feet from him.
Oof.
Yeah.
And what did it feel like?
It felt like, I would imagine if you were in a bubble and there was no sound. So afterwards, it's almost like it was whoa, whoa. It was this weird out of body, because there's that much energy that's going through the ground and where you are and how loud it is. I think you're temporarily deafened, which is what I experienced.
And how old were you?
I was 18. And I had to get him and bring him inside.
Oh
and
my gosh.
the island has no electricity and no running water and no services. So, we had to call the ambulance, but it's a boat that shows up. And
And where is this?
this is northern Minnesota.
In northern Minnesota.
So it's a volunteer firefighters showed up. You don't really have an address. You have to say oh, come to the east end of the island,
Come to the place with
3
the big deafening
feet
boom.
away. Yeah, you have to give them weird coordinates. But they thought he was dead, of course.
Oh my god.
But he regained everything pretty quickly, and then they drove him to shore, and there was an ambulance waiting, but then it's another 40 minutes to the hospital. And the storm was so bad, everything was washed out, and he got there, and the electricity was, gone in the hospital. It was running on generators, it was flooding. The whole thing was out of a movie.
I realize it's probably a ridiculous question, but did
Yeah.
his mood change afterwards?
Why is
Because
it
our
a
last
question?
show was about
I don't know. It's a funny story.
about ECG, where they were apparently electroconvulsive therapy is the most effective way to elicit mood change, and it cures
I should ask him, because honestly, health-wise, he was completely fine. I mean, the whole thing was completely ridiculous. Like, there's so much more to this story that, you know, if we really got into it. But he was fine.
Like when he angered Zeus?
At the end of the day, like, it was fine. Like, he was, the doctor goes,
so he has zero
you're
side
fine.
effects.
But the weirdest thing is it charred his veins. So it's like they became discolored, and he has photos of like down his legs, and his socks smelled like fire, and like it colored. It was very bizarre. But other than that, he had no symptoms like afterwards from it. But he immediately was like, I need a glass of bourbon and a cigarette. And he was like, and everyone was like, buy a lotto ticket.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
I know a guy who got hit by lightning twice.
That's what they say. They say
it hits
if you
the same
get hit
people.
once, you get hit twice.
Yeah, they
So
say
like,
actually
I
if you
have
ever
like
get
this
hit,
kind of unhealthy fear of like lightning.
What if it's genetic? Is what you're thinking? Like the lightning's coming for you? You're like, your whole lineage has angered the gods.
It's bizarre though, because in a way I feel like I saved my dad's life at 18.
Yeah.
Because really he couldn't move, and he said, Michelle, you have to get me inside. I'm afraid like it will hit again. And you know when they say like in certain circumstances you get superhuman strength, well, I did.
That's what
because
my
I
next
had
question,
to pick up my dad and pull him inside, and it wasn't like 10 feet of dragging him. It was like we had a deck that was 5 feet high that I had to like lift him over and then into this. It was essentially a sun porch that he had built by the water. So it's kind of like where we would go and hang out that was like sheltered. So like there was a storm coming, so we just said, oh, let's go make sure everything's closed up so there's not rain that gets in there. That's the only reason why we were down there. Isn't that crazy? Anyway,
Super.
I don't know how we started the
That's a
podcast
good
with
intro
that.
because we wanted to talk about where you're from and what brought you to Jacksonville anyway, so we kind of started.
I mean, I'm originally from Iowa. I was born and raised in Waterloo, Iowa, which is where my dad's from, so I'm Midwestern at heart. But the cabin that I spoke of is actually in northern Minnesota. It's almost to Canada.
Oh.
And my family that immigrated over from Cornwall actually homesteaded the property. So it's been in my family for many, 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 many years.
Wow.
And it's a very special place, and I go there every single summer. Yeah.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
What sorts of things do you do when you go?
All the things. Canoeing, blueberry picking, hiking, lots of naps, fishing, a lot of building because it is primitive. There is no electricity. There's running water, but it's from the lake, so there's no drinking water. You have to bring everything in. It's really.
You can't drink the water from the lake, right?
No,
because it's not fed. It's not fresh.
No, and there's a lot of iron in it because iron mining in northern Minnesota. That's why my family came over to mine iron ore.
Is that technically irony?
Pardon me?
Is that technically irony?
Yes, sure. Yes. But that's kind of how it started. But all of my family mostly is from the Midwest. My mom's from Chicago and my dad's from Iowa, and I ended up in Iowa and born and raised.
And then you've been going to that lake cabin since you were a child.
Oh yes, every single summer I've gone there, and it's morphed. Like the main property has kind of morphed to we're gonna move this cabin because the main property had a big house, a studio, a lighthouse, 3 small cabins, a barn, a sauna, a boat. I mean, it was an estate. And then, but the cabin that I ended up going to as a child was one that they moved in the winter. They tore it down in the winter because it's obviously easier to move logs in the middle of winter because you can just move them across the ice instead of on a boat or a barge. And so the one that I went to is actually a cabin from the original property that they just moved.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a cool story.
But that's my favorite. I mean, that's my place. Like if people ask me, where is your favorite place to travel? It would be northern Minnesota, which it's a funny place because you would have never thought to visit if you're not from the area.
Right, yeah.
But ironically, I don't know if you know the actress Jessica Lange, but she's from northern Minnesota. She was like King Kong, like the original King Kong. Like she was American Horror Story. If you ever watched American Horror Story.
You know that actress?
I know, yeah.
She's older, but she's from northern Minnesota, and she's from up there, and I've listened to interviews of her, and she's talked about the same thing. Like, she will never not have a home up there. There's something special about northern Minnesota.
Have you ever checked if there's like one of those earth vortexes?
I'm sure. It's a really magical place.
Yeah, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful.
In the summer.
It's summer. Yes.
And the thing about it is there's a town right next to, so the lake that the island we're on is 9 miles long. If this gives you an idea of how big the lake is, one island is 9 miles long. Well, actually, I think it's technically 5 miles long and 3 miles wide, if I remember. But Ely, Minnesota, which is right near Lake Vermilion, which is the lake that my cabin is on, that's the last stop before this the boundary waters, which is protected land in the U.S. and Canada, that you can't have any motorized boats, you can't build anything. So it's like this primitive place that still exists in the U.S. and Canada that many people don't know about, that you can only take a canoe, you have to take everything with you, and Ely is an outfitting town. That's why people go there. You get all of your gear before you go out. But you could go into Canada, I mean, you cross the border, no passport needed.
Wow.
Because you're in this protected...
This is not a professional advice.
Well, no, it's part of the experience.
Right,
I mean, it's both sides, it's both the U.S. and Canada. So it's really cool because there's this really, really beautiful area that I don't think a lot of people know about.
No, I don't think so.
So it's the Boundary Waters Canoe Area is what it's called, but it's technically in the Superior National Forest. So, like, Lake Superior is on the right side of Minnesota, and it borders, so everything on the right side, is on the border of Lake Superior. So it's the Great Lakes are insane because they're so big. They look like oceans. Like, you can't see to the other side. And it has similar coastline to the northeast. Rocky. It's crazy. Like, it's beautiful. Anyway,
I believe I've
Google
seen it in film, so it's portrayed very romantically in film
always
as well.
Always is.
Okay. So
anyway,
what happened then? What brought you here to Jacksonville, Florida?
I mean, it's sort of a long story, but I ended up going to college in Chicago for photography. I studied photography originally at Columbia College Chicago, and then I transferred to Harrington College of Design, which is no longer around, but they had a digital photography program that I was like, I started in fine art, and I loved fine art photography. We were doing darkroom work, we were doing large format. I mean, it was incredible. Like, Columbia was incredible, and that's where my love for film started. So like, we can kind of start the journey there, which is when I was 18. So at Columbia is where I didn't realize it was a film school. And I was there for photography, but I ended up being an extra on a student film. And really, it was just a way to meet people. And I was like, I just want to meet, artists and fellow students. And so I'd never been on a film set. And it was a student film with a pretty good budget. I would say $20K maybe. Which in 2005 is a lot.
Yeah, it's a budget for some small films.
It was a lot. And so I really got to see how films were made at this high level because, student films, you have all the equipment, you have all the studios. I was like, this is incredible. I love the collaboration, in the filmmaking process.
It's like an opera, right? Like,
it was incredible. Yeah. And you do everything. Like, I was a extra, but then I started, doing other jobs. I was gripping. I was, helping move this over there, holding a boom. Like, you just do all the things. But I continued to work on more short films while I lived in Chicago, but I was studying photography. Like, that was my main thing. But I ended up doing a lot of still photography on movie sets. So after I did the extra work for that short, the director was like, "Hey, do you want to take our behind the scenes photos?" And I'm like, "Well, what does that encompass?" He's like, "Oh, just get shots for the movie poster." And like, that's a job? And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Whoa, this is a weird niche I had no idea existed." And so I continued to do that, but meanwhile I was still studying like commercial advertising photography because I was interested in, hey, I need to make money when I'm done with this degree. And fine art, I couldn't see the path. But with commercial work, I'm like, oh, I see the path here. And I was motivated to not be in debt for my whole life. And, you know, my parents obviously helped with a majority of my education. So there was that Midwestern value in me, which is I have to work hard and I need to like feel like this is worth it. So long story short, when I graduated, I moved back home to Iowa for a year, and there was this film that came to town, which was really weird because nothing's really shot there, but they had a tax incentive at the time. So some states offer tax incentives for filmmakers. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Yeah, Georgia has a big one. Florida doesn't have one.
Oh, I thought we had one here too.
It's not great. It's not good.
Oh, just not
so we have it, just not good.
I don't know, and I don't want to speak to that, but either we have one and it's not great, or we don't have one at all. All I know is Georgia is a much better place to make films.
Because Disney films a lot in Orlando.
They do, yeah. But yeah, that's why Atlanta has really kind of blown up in that regard. So at the time, Iowa had one.
Wow.
So there was this $1 million budget film that came to Davenport, Iowa, which is where I was living. And I saw, you know, an advertisement in the newspaper. This dates me for a still photographer. And I was like, holy shit, I actually have a portfolio because of all the work I did in college.
Wow, it gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, it was so weird. And so I like went to the interview, and it was with, I think she was ADing. Her name's Rachel Goldenberg. She's now our director in LA, and we actually just talked on DM like yesterday because she's directing a film. And she interviewed me. And she was like, it's you know, Brittany Murphy is our lead, and here's the day rate. And I was like, yes, yeah, whatever. Like, you don't have to convince me, I'll do it. And so I shot on that movie for like 21 days or something.
And you were
the still photographer.
But at the time, you were like 24?
I was 20. I graduated early.
Oh, okay. So you were
21. 22.
Very young.
I was super young. But I felt confident to be there. I didn't feel like a job that I couldn't do. So that movie really, it's called Mega Fault. It's made for TV. If you guys look at the IMDb, it's
Mega Fault.
Yeah, it's a very like ridiculous sort
Anything
of
that's wrong with it is got to be your fault.
B movie. It's like a disaster film.
Oh.
It was actually one of Brittany Murphy's like last films. She died shortly after. Which was really sad to see, but like to work with her at that time in her career. But I just learned so much on that project, and and that production company, The Asylum, they're from LA. And so they said, hey, if you want to do more of this, we make a feature a month, which for non-filmmakers, a feature a month is insane. That's a full-length movie, which is over, you know, normally 120 minutes is like a normal feature. A short is like 10 to 15.
Yeah.
But Hollywood, you know, features are 6 months on the short end, 3 or 4 months. But to make one in a month is really, really insane. And so I moved a month later. I'd never been to LA. I had never visited California. I knew one person. I had $500. My parents were like, good luck. I had no car because a drunk driver had totaled my car like 3 months earlier. My dad's like, oh, you can take your grandfather's old beater and drive that out there. I mean, it was one of those where you just go, like, fuck it, I've just got to, like, try. And what's the worst? You come home. But I really didn't understand that still photography could be a job. And I think I found something in that. And I moved out there and I worked for the production company for a while. And I just kind of got out of that particular world because I really wanted to pursue more creative photography. But I still continued to do it for a while, and I learned, and I met the best. I mean, I met some of the most incredible people
doing that
in LA working with the asylum, and we were all students of life. You know, we were all young filmmakers at the time, and so everyone's hungry and everyone's just there for the experience, and the pay is terrible. But you're not doing it for the pay. You're doing it for the experience. So that got me out to LA, and I continued to build my commercial photography and just continue to freelance. And then I met my former partner in LA, and we had our son. He was born in LA in 2012. And subsequently, for, you know, family and personal reasons, we moved to Florida because he was from Jacksonville.
Oh.
So he is from Jacksonville. So that's how I actually ended up in Florida.
And this is when you decided to go to the College of Design?
Harrington? Yeah. That was in Chicago. Okay. So I started at Columbia, but I didn't finish there. I transferred to Harrington, which had a deeper focus on digital photography and less on fine art, because I was living and breathing in the darkroom. And I was like, I don't see how this... where is this going to get me? Because it was so expensive and so laborious, and I didn't understand the gallery system and how that worked at the time. I was just focused on, you know, a day rate or a project or much more of the like business mindset than long form storytelling for galleries or books.
And this is when we met, right? We met like, what is it, like 2015?
I think we met at Space 42, did we?
Space 42.
No, actually.
No, we met before.
I don't.
You know how we met? We did a collab. My fashion.
That was it.
For the Perversion magazine.
Yeah, okay, so it was Perversion magazine. Yeah, we were doing a photo shoot, and you did the wardrobe styling with your pieces for that. Yes, that's how we met. So yes, when I moved here, I was still attempting to try to do those creative editorial projects. Few and far between. I learned quickly. Which was a bit of a, like... There was a lot going on right before I left, so it was definitely like a dip when I got here of creativity.
How long do you think it took you to kind of find your bearings and to get, you know, to get, I'd say, to where you feel comfortable with the creative process here in Florida?
I think it's only been in the last few years, if I'm completely honest.
A few years would be like 3-4 years.
I think when I really started to see the shift in the movement in my creative work would be last year. I did a lot of things, but
right, yeah.
Personal work, I feel...
It takes a while. I mean, you have to learn a very unique system.
I pivoted, and I think that's what... And that can kind of dovetail into, you know, the introduction, which is photography was always my thing. It was always my background in arts in general. Because I went to an art school, I had a lot of knowledge about fine art and gallery art and just that world because I was exposed to it. But living in LA, obviously, I attended many art shows and kind of learned that world. But I realized, you know, I wasn't really willing to change what I wanted to do just because I lived in a place that didn't have it. And so that's why I decided, okay, as an artist, I have to figure out how to pivot. I can't be mad about where I am. And I'm a mom, and so I want to be here. I'm not trying to live somewhere else or travel. And so I think that's where I had to take a hard look at myself and say, why am I so rigid about this one thing? Why can't I look at this through a different lens? It's all creative expression, but let me look at a different medium. How can I create something that feels more fulfilling? And I think what happened was, in 2019, 2020 is when I took an acting class, and I really did that out of fear. Like I legit sat with myself and was like, okay, what is the thing that scares you the most in life? And it was being seen, and it was being exposed and vulnerable to others. And that was my own trauma that I hadn't dealt with, but I didn't realize at the time that's what it was. But as a photographer, I could be behind the camera. I was protected. I could impose my viewpoint on somebody else. Like, it was much more of like this control dynamic that kept me safe. So I had this sort of like break in like my thinking, and it was, okay, let's shake things up. Let's try to break through this block that you have. And I took the acting class, and I was proud of myself for doing it, but I hated it simultaneously. It felt so uncomfortable. It was so hard. It was so clunky. It didn't give me reprieve, but it kept the curiosity going. And that's when I posted a video this morning on Instagram of, it's actually Steven Spielberg talking about his creative process. And he talks about how the thing that you're supposed to be doing, it never shouts, it always whispers. And it's so true. It's like the intuition, God, the universe, whatever you want to, whichever part you believe, it's a whisper and it's a curiosity. It's never something that yells at you. And so that was my whisper. And then I would put it, and then I put it away. I'm like, okay, universe, okay, God, I did that. I did the hard thing you asked me to do. Now let me go back to what I'm doing. Yeah. And, you know, God, the universe, nope. You know what I mean? And then the whisper comes back and you're like, oh, fuck, I got to do this again. So like, I did it again, and I did another class. I'm like, okay, cool. I did that. Thank you. And then let me go back to my normal life. Like, leave me alone. You know, it felt like a kid, like, fighting with herself.
Did it change when you went to the second class?
It got easier. And then I did one more that was like a scene study class. And I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I did that. This is ridiculous. I'm in my 30s. Like, this is not a career for me. This makes no sense. And that's really how I felt. Like, it made absolutely no sense to me in my mind, but I was doing it. And that's, I think, when you know, like, it's not from you. It's your intuition speaking. And so I continued forth, and then I got really curious about my own past and healing and doing work. And I started doing a lot of internal work. And then it just slowly started to unfold back into this place of filmmaking. And it was such this, and it's been long. That's why I say it's only been the last year that I really felt it. But it's really been since like 2019. And then I started writing, and I wrote my first short in 2020 while I was in therapy, and it was just a creative exercise. I really didn't think anything about it. And I ended up making that movie. And then
that's on the therapy, how do you call it?
It's EMDR therapy. So the film is obviously a personal story, but EMDR is not something I've personally done. Our director, that was kind of her idea because she had experience with EMDR. So that film, Belle Isle, you saw it, you came to the premiere, but it's in festival circuit. So like, it'll be at the Jacksonville Film Festival next month. It's premiering. It'll be at the Sleeping Giant Festival this weekend. Nice. So now it's Sunray Cinema. Yep.
In 5 Points, Jacksonville.
In 5 Points, and then the Jacksonville Film Festival. I don't have those specific dates. We're doing more. Like, I'll talk more about that. We're doing more marketing for that, but it's the last day of the festival. It's the Jacksonville Short. So they're doing a whole block with just Jacksonville filmmakers.
So it's Sunday the 14th. Because I think it's Friday through Sunday, right?
Yeah, it's the whole weekend
of April.
Yeah. So it's actually the 14th. And it's at the main library downtown during the Jacksonville Shorts block. So
and let's talk
I'm still in disbelief that I'm here. You know what I mean?
So where are you now? After, I know it's been only a year, but obviously, as you said, the transformative period.
Yeah.
Quite a few years.
I think because I did a lot of the hard work. And I think the thing that was being revealed to me during the whole take an acting class was, I feel like it was my subconscious kind of speaking to me. I think it was time. I think there were blocks that I had that I needed to unravel. And because I stayed diligent, and because I listened, and because I was obedient to that, I kept going, even though it didn't really make sense, because I'm the kind of person that, like, if I have something in my mind, I know where I'm trying to go. And with this, I had no idea where I was going. Like, there was no roadmap, there was no plan, there was no end goal. It was just, be curious and continue forth. Like, in this exploration, be open. And so as I continued down that path, you know, I went to therapy for the first time and worked through a lot of hard things, which then uncracked a lot of capabilities I didn't know I had. And then I'm like, oh, cool. Now I can step forward into this thing and it doesn't feel as heavy. And so I could take more risks, and it just started building. And then opportunities started coming my way because I stayed diligent, and because I didn't really I wasn't trying to get anywhere. It was just, oh, I think I'm being guided, but I don't really know. But I'm just going to kind of play neutral and be consistent. And really what happened was, you know, a friend of mine reached out and said, hey, I'm starting an agency. Can I sign you? And I'm like, I've never modeled. I've never acted, really. I've done a couple of classes, but I have no experience. But sure. Like, that was me taking another jump. And then from there, that was about 2 years ago, it's just kept unfolding. And I've made more projects. I've been booked on more projects. I've auditioned for a ton of things. I've done short films. I've done commercials. I just watched the first screening of my first feature that I was in.
Oh, which one? Is it The Secret?
Came unknowingly to me. The film was actually shot in Fernandina. Yeah, the whole feature was shot in Fernandina. It's called Greek Mothers Never Die. It's kind of a comedy drama. And the director, who is French and Greek, reached out and just said, hey, like, I have an idea. And it came very organically. I did not audition. You know, and then you just go, okay, universe, like, I'm on your timeline. I'm not on mine anymore. And that's, like, where I got into, like, what people call alignment. And that's where I feel like you can get to a place in life, if you're conscious, where you're taken on this path and you're open and you're in flow, and really cool things start happening to you, for you, because you've done the work. And I can see that now.
So it almost sounds like taking that first jump and putting yourself in an uncomfortable environment, as in an acting class.
Sure.
That was pretty much the first time you were doing this, right? Like, not doing something that I don't know why I'm doing this.
I had never done anything that wasn't conscious before.
So what, like, if you want to share that, what was that last straw?
If I could be really vulnerable, I think what happened is I've suffered from depression and anxiety most of my life. I wasn't fully aware of it because I was always high functioning, and so it got me places. So I never really thought there was an issue. But I went through this really big depressive phase, like one of those where you can't get out of bed, and this thought came to me. Like, I was either watching something, or I forget what it was, but it was like, I remember hearing the quote, like, out of our greatest fear comes our greatest success. And it just kind of like hit me. And I was like, well, what am I afraid of? And it was of being seen, of being vulnerable. So I realize now that was formed out of not feeling safe. So I spent a lot of time as a child and through adulthood not feeling safe, and I didn't understand that, and I was trying to overcompensate, I think, a lot for that. So anything that felt too vulnerable or too dangerous, I had to push away because it was a threat, and I didn't have enough, I wasn't grounded enough and whole enough to take those risks. They were too risky because I was too wounded in a way. Right, like, it was shaky under the surface because of all the unprocessed, you know, trauma that I had dealt with. And I would say, like, there's complex PTSD for sure. I mean, multiple traumas over time in different areas kind of build this human that they're just trying to navigate with limited tools. And so I was trying to navigate with limited tools, and I think it just got to the point where your body and your brain and your subconscious and your soul and your spirit just goes, okay, enough. Enough is enough. Like, it's time to repair. And so I think that leap was me attempting to overcome something and take a risk. And when you take a risk and it's safe, you're like, oh, it's not really a threat. I just thought it was a threat. I think that's the subconscious brain's way of keeping us safe. So I think that's what really like tipped it over for me.
It's really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for being open and sharing. Yeah.
And I'm open. I'm like really open about this kind of stuff, especially as a creative and an artist, because I've been on a journey, and if my journey can help somebody else's journey, that's why I'm here. You know, like, and I know that now. I know that like my voice and my experience is hopefully to help others.
And that was what was your first film where you were the screenwriter
Yes.
and the actress, the main actress.
Yeah, and that was terrifying. That was the scariest thing I've ever done. Because
To
act, produce, and be the main character in scenes where I have a full-blown panic attack in a convenience store. I have to, you know, have a monologue with a therapist. I mean, there's like a lot. I had to learn to dance. I did somatic work, movement therapy. I had to learn how to box. I mean, I had to learn all these things. Oh yeah, I had no confidence in my acting ability. I really didn't. I said, okay, this thing is guided, clearly. I'm a vessel. I hope it works out, you know? But I can't really control the outcome. I can just show up and do my absolute best. And I think that's the beautiful thing about acting, is you just get to show up and you do your best and you show up how you are and you can't change it. You get one, you know, that's your moment, and then you just leave it. And there's something really freeing about that.
Oh yeah, no, I can see that. It's being like, as you said, a vessel. Or like
I see it as channeling. Writing it to me is channeling. Acting is being a vessel for a different character. So in a way, I feel like acting and filmmaking is more of it resonates with my soul on a deeper level than, say, just photography, because I think because I get to embody a different character, and I can come at it from the viewpoint of what would it be like to be this person. And if I can hopefully do a good job, then I can make somebody else feel seen and heard through this character. And that was really what the character of Jessica in Belle Isle was about. And that's what gave me the strength to do it.
I would only ever be able to do typecast characters.
Yeah.
They'd be like, we need a guy who's like
mobster.
Bill here. You know Bill? Yeah, I know Bill. We need a guy like that.
We need Kill Bill.
Yeah.
You're literally Kill Bill.
I am.
So that was not last year. That was 2 years ago.
So I wrote it in 2020. We filmed in 2021. We premiered in 2023.
But it was early in the year?
At Sunray in June, I believe.
Okay.
And now it's in festival circuit, which takes some take a whole year to see if you've gotten in. So I think we've submitted to a lot. Like the whole year will be full of it screening. But I think it's already been accepted into 4 or 5 festivals. So yeah, I mean, that's the timeline. That Belle Isle took a little bit longer than normal, and I just spoke on this because the editing process took a while, and I look back and I understand why. Because when you're dealing with a film about trauma, you don't realize that then when it's done, you have to relive it again. Like, you have to process it so many times throughout the process of making the film, pre-production. Well, writing, pre-production, production, post-production, then screening. So it's like you're constantly having to, and because that was so close to me, it was so hard. And for our director too, Farrell, you know, equally, if not more, difficult to figure out how do I want to put this together? What do I want to say? Like, there's a vulnerability in it and a healing process in the editing process, which I didn't have any foresight towards that. And then watching it, I've only seen it maybe 3 times. I can't watch it. It's really hard for me to watch. It's really dark. It's difficult. So now the projects that I've been doing, they're lighter. They're still deeply devoted to, you know, the human condition, you know, our experiences as complex people, our past, you know, difficult as most of ours have been. I still love these themes, but Belle Isle was so personal that I feel like I have shed a little bit because that's done, and I don't think I need to revisit that again.
You think you might do a comedy?
Well, the feature I did was a comedy.
That's right.
And I told the director, Rachel, Sousa is her name, I said, I love this because I never get to do comedy. And it was so fun. Like, I got to play the kind of, you know, the girl that has the guy, but the girl who isn't as attractive wants the guy, and I make her jealous. You know what I mean? It's one of those, and it's so, like, not me. But it was like, it's like the hot girl role, which is what I typecast myself as. But it was just fun. It was pure, like, joy. Just, I just get to play and have fun with this character and just, like, be loose. And, you know, there's no constraints, really, with comedy. Like, you kind of just do your thing. And
were you allowed to improvise?
Yeah, we improvised. The director would give us lines. Like, before, like, most of them were just, okay, say this, go. Which I thought was so fun.
Is it already done and available?
No, so they... the edit has been finished, but it's not been actually premiered because it's in festival circuit.
Oh.
Yeah, so it can't actually be...
So we'd have to go to Cannes.
Yeah, it can't actually be screened.
Oh.
Yet. So there's, like, I don't know if you guys know that, but you can't actually have a premiere for a film until if it's in festival circuit, if they're big festivals, because they want the first...
Exclusivity, right?
Exclusivity, yeah.
So it's different with shorts?
Shorts, some are the same, but, like, some are not.
So what were the other projects after the Belle Isle that he did?
I just wrote, and we just filmed the second short, which was Tallulah Park, which is actually about... It's it's based in Jacksonville. Tallulah Park is a real park in Jacksonville. It's not similar to Belle Isle, but it is my voice, so there are some similarities to it. But that idea came 4 years ago. I mean, really, like, these ideas cook for a long time, and then you just, like, finally, like, it all comes together. Like, I do believe in divine timing for things, especially creative projects. Like, I feel like, this is supposed to happen right now.
Oh, that's for sure.
Like, that happens to me all the time.
Yeah, I've pushed to do everything very quickly my whole life, and I've had the wonderful pleasure of finding out that I was way early for everything, and by the time it actually comes out, I'm like, I'm too tired for that. I'm over it.
Yeah, I think art making is like that, and if you're tuned in
is the key.
And if you're in flow, it comes when it needs to come, and I realize that. So I don't put pressure on myself, but the part of the idea for that one came a while ago. I just didn't have the ending, and then I just had to live a little bit more life, and then the ending came, and I wrote it. Here's the thing. Belle Isle I wrote in a night, and it was done. Tallulah Park, the idea had been cooking for a while, but I finished that film in like an hour.
Writing.
So it's like when it comes, it comes, and then you know it. And that's the weird thing where I can't really explain that to people. It's like a channeling of it, and it kind of comes out. And that... Tallulah Park is much more of a poem to me. I think Belle Isle is kind of experimental because there is this, like, overlay of this, like, dream sequence of, like, is it reality or is it not? And there's, like, a lot of movement. Tallulah Park is based in reality, but the way that I wrote the dialogue is much more poetic because I actually wrote songs, like, they're lyrics or poems that I use for dialogue. So I just tried something different there. And I didn't really want it to sound like how people talk. I wanted it to sound a little bit off because the character is a little bit off. And so it kind of gives you that sense of, are we watching a real movie or are we watching a poem? Are we watching a dream? Like, what are we watching? Because there's a lot more you can do with a short because it is 15 minutes. You get to experiment. You can't really tell a start to finish. You can, but it's a lot harder. You have to imply
the majority of the story.
Yeah,
you get to go to the nexus of it, right? And tell like a part of the story, and the rest is implied.
Exactly. There's still a hero's journey, like, in that film, but it's much more poetic to me. There's a lot more deeper meaning. There's a lot more metaphors. There's a lot more nuance in that film.
It's so interesting. It just caught my attention that there's a lot more you can do in a short. Like a lot of people would think like you can do a lot more in 120 minutes than a short.
No,
but I see now what you
well, you have to hold
each thing you make.
attention with a feature, and you have to have this arc, and you have to have all these plot points. A short is much more of a loose format, and so it's more fun.
That's why a series is difficult unless your format is literally to be episodically serial.
Yeah,
episodic serial.
Yeah.
You plan unless you plan to just go through the same thing like again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
If you're actually telling a story that develops, it's very difficult not to start to come across very quickly like a soap opera where your own style has basically trapped you.
Exactly.
And you now have something that's kind of dull to watch because people are tired of hearing that one story that way.
Yeah.
Have you seen the new Three Body Problem?
Mm-mm.
It's brand new, so I don't imagine too many people.
What's it on, or what is it?
It's on Netflix, and I'm excited about it as a science fiction series that has an extremely broad arcing story that covers hundreds and hundreds of years. It's cool because where a lot of science fiction doesn't really get space and time right, it's one that gets space and time right, and as a consequence, I think gets to explore some much deeper ideas.
But it's based on a book, right?
It's based on the books. That's right. It's based
so
on
is the book correctly written about science? Okay.
It's Remembrance of Earth's Past is the series.
Oh, I like this name more than the Three Body Problem. Because
Three Body
unless
Problem
you
is
know...
actually the first book of
that
three.
sounds kind of...
Well, unless you know what they mean, and it's from you explained to me, it's a certain
it's a celestial thing.
Celestial problem, and that's why, and there is a relationship to that problem in the series. But if you don't know, like I didn't know, to me it sounds just very strange. Three Body Problem. I think of some like murder story, you know.
It's an astrological situation where you have three suns. If you have a planet that orbits three suns, it can switch between these two. If you have two, then you can calculate where it is. But if there's three stars with gravitational pull in a system, and
you
a
can't
planet,
predict.
You can't predict because
like
it can
disasters or weather or change of conditions.
Right.
Gravity pull, gravity not pulling. It's just like you live like.
That's fascinating.
Instead, it goes through cycles like chaotic cycles and less chaotic cycles. So we'll go through periods of long stability and then periods that are largely chaotic. Because even the rate at which it switches will vacillate. Has its own period. So you've got so many systems on top of systems that it's impossible for us to calculate it.
Speaking of series or just like films, what do you do for entertainment or just relaxation?
You know what's funny is I was gonna say that I do not consume a lot of like television and film, and I really don't watch TV at all. I consume YouTube, and that's like in my own time.
That's me all day
and
until recently.
I'll have my phone, and it'll be late at night, and I'll just like watch YouTube. I like long form YouTube, whether it's filmmakers talk. They do a lot of roundtables with filmmakers and actors. Variety does actors on actors. Like I watch that stuff, or I'll watch. Sometimes I'll watch vloggers because I just want to like my brain to just shut off and do something stupid. But it's usually things like that. Like I really don't watch series. I don't even have a TV in my house, which is like really funny. But I have a projector. So it's like I have to choose to watch something, and it's usually only when I feel inspired to do so.
Identical for the identical reasons. I've never had a television in my life.
I don't like looking at them in my living room.
I studied advertising and marketing, and from what I know about it, I can never go to a store to buy an object, the objective of which is to sell advertising space to influence me, and then set that in my home. Yeah. I just can't do it.
For me, it's a visual thing. I like art. So I want art to be on my mantle or art to be the focus of a room. And if a black box is the focus of the room, I just feel it cheapens it. And it just makes the space feel a little bit dull. So I've just chosen not to have a TV. Not that I don't consume enough media on my phone, because I absolutely do, but
it's more curated.
It's more curated. It's more intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and trust me, I'll scroll here and there, but like I don't have TikTok. I deleted TikTok. I don't really watch Instagram Shorts that often. I don't consume social media. I use social media as a tool. I promote what I'm doing. I promote my films. Like, people can stay in touch with me via my social because I do post my day. I post on my stories all the time. But I don't personally consume. And I think that's what keeps the balance super healthy, because there's no validation or there's no comparison that I'm attempting to garner through social media. And that's me doing the work. That's me feeling free and confident in myself to say, I can show up however I am, and however people want to take that is fine. Right. So it gives me permission to show up more. I think there's this whole thing about me learning how to show up. And I think that whole I don't want to be seen was that block of it feels too vulnerable to be seen. And so I can't show up fully. But now that I'm kind of on the other side of that, I think what people are seeing maybe through my social media or the journey that I'm on, because I do get a lot of feedback of like, wow, you're doing a lot, like, woof. And I'm like, I'm not. Like, this was the old me. I was just doing it from a different energy. But I've kind of always been like this, you know, and it's just good time management. And I don't spend time doing things that are unimportant to me. Right. Like, it's definitely, I'm very intentional with my time. And I plan, like, if you saw my calendar, you'd be like, whoa, because if it's not there, I'm not doing it. Yeah. Like, there's a very, like, same. You know, and my weekends aren't, I'm not out. I'm not wasting a Sunday somewhere doing something random. Like, it's not that I don't want to, or that maybe that would be fun at some point in time, but, well, Sundays are the quietest, so I'm going to sit down and write. Or, like, that's when I'm going to get creative because no one's bothering me.
Yeah, we have this in common entirely.
Yeah.
And we didn't used to be that way. Even only recently do we watch things, and we've watched quite a bit since the pandemic.
Yeah.
And things for us shifted because we had more time together that we needed to mentally kind of relax from a very busy day where we both work from home.
So do I. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to be intentional with your time when you work from home.
Yeah. But even still, we don't doom scroll, and we don't nothing auto plays. When we watch something, we come together. What do you want to watch? We put it on a projector, same as you.
Yeah.
And then when
and very often we actually start something, and if I feel like that's going to be a waste of my time for 2 hours.
Yeah, or if I catch myself numbing out, I know it immediately. I'm like, oh, this is me just like numbing, or it's a feeling I don't want to feel. And I catch myself now because I have built self-awareness where I'm like, oh, this is me trying to ignore a feeling using my phone. Like scrolling or watching something, and then I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay, let me like stop. And then I have to get intentional. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
I imagine you're the same way. We also never go to sleep that way.
Which way?
We never go to sleep like in front of like watching something and we fall. Like if we start,
I'm guilty. I not to sleep, but it's what I do before sleep.
Like I'll start to fall asleep frequently because I'm mellow, I'm relaxed. So of course, yeah, it's easy for me to start.
Yeah, no, I don't do that.
No,
I don't fall asleep.
Because I actually just bought an alarm clock.
Yeah.
Because I want to keep my phone charging somewhere outside the bedroom.
Oh, that's smart.
So, and I just
a
like
nice, cute little.
And like, if I need to,
it's like a 1920s cartoon.
If I need to get a I need a battery. I just got it yesterday. Yeah, but that was my intention because even if I need to check the time, let's say I try to wake up unless I have an appointment. I definitely don't want to miss it early in the morning. I try to wake up on my own, but even if I like look at the time, if I can judge by the light,
right.
I'm still looking at my phone, and if there's a message, you're like, oh, and you're like sucked into answering, and like my morning starts with answering all the messages. So I'm like, I just have to.
I've gotten really good at it. It's like I'm so discerning with my time and my energy. Like it's like I feel very good about it. Like in the morning I journal. Like that's one of my practices. I don't do anything. I do not touch an email. I do not answer anything until I have coffee, and I sit down and I give those 20 minutes to myself.
Yeah, and it's very healthy. Great. I started doing this last year. Well, I was doing this till like last year, May. And to me, it was until 8. I didn't look at my phone. My phone was on Do Not Disturb, so I couldn't even see if there were any messages. I would only check for time. And no screens, no YouTube video, nothing, you know, just like you said, coffee, journaling, or just sitting outside. And then it just was my dad. I had to, when he had like his stroke, and because he's in a completely different time zone, it kind of brought me back into waking up and first thing checking the phone if there are news, you know.
Yeah.
But then that situation closed in August, but the habit was already redeveloped.
It's hard to undo those.
Yeah, and it's not really hard. It literally just takes like just buying an alarm clock if you need to look at the time, right? If you bound in your calendar to something. Anyway, this is like
someday I hope to be relaxed enough to need that again. I don't even have anything I have to do early in the morning, and I wake up at 4 or 5 at the latest, and
in the morning. What?
And
Bill, what the fuck?
Literally with nothing to do. I come in here.
Well, 4 is a little bit exaggerated. I would say now you wake up about 5 to 6.
Never 6.
Okay.
That is crazy. I can't. I'm not. I try to be a morning person. I'm so not.
I come in here and I usually then I smoke weed and then I play video games and I do virtual reality. Yeah, I put on loud music. I'm like blaring music and singing along.
I mean, whatever works.
Heavy metal music.
Right?
Yeah. But I do. I sit and I talk sometimes to like the people who are coming into the live stream, and we'll have a chat or whatever. And then I'm like, we're definitely going to do 2 things. We're going to smoke weed and we're going to play video games. So those 2 things are going to happen.
Very opposite.
And then I get
very opposite.
Actually, around 7 a.m. is when the office opens for the company, and so that's when I usually get off. I didn't used to. I used to continue gaming and then put my office right into the game with overlay screens and just do it all at the same time.
That's insane.
But especially since I'm like talking to a technician and I'm being shot at by somebody in a virtual reality video game. So it's a lot going on at once, but I throttled back on that. And I don't think it's actually healthy. It's a bit.
Is that like an ADD brain or an ADHD brain that can? Because I like resonate. I can do that. Like I can have 100 tabs open, but it's not. It burnout is real when you do that. Like I've had to be so mindful about. Yes, I can go into 300%. Like I can do all that, but is it healthy?
Modern technology still doesn't have the ability on a single computer to run enough monitors doing enough things to keep me busy.
Yeah.
I've got high refresh monitors all over the place, as you can see around here. Yeah. And they're all always doing something, and I'm always adding more. I'm always finding ways to get more monitors. So more things can be going on at once.
The rain is stopping. It's like it was accompanying our podcast.
I liked it, though.
It was beautiful.
I think...
I was going to say thank you very much for braving I realized from what you told us today that I didn't know about your journey through acting classes and this. It means that this podcast in some way must be similar because...
well, not anymore. She's like an actress now.
Yeah, I mean, now you don't even think about it. Well, just
to show up.
Also
be seen and exposed.
I'm used to it now. Yeah. I mean, I do it a lot, so it's definitely like it's like second nature at this point, which is a good feeling to have. You get to just show up authentically and be yourself.
Yeah, and you look good on the camera. But before we close, anything else you would like to share? Maybe like we wanted to talk about Jax Fest, but so the premiere of the screening rather, right, of your...
So Belle Isle is screening at the Jacksonville Film Festival during the Jacksonville Shorts, which will be on Sunday.
April 14th.
Yeah, April 14th. I think it's in the evening, but you can go to their website. It's jacksonvillefilmfestival.com, I believe, and they have the whole schedule there. So you can actually pick certain blocks. Like, you don't have to attend the whole thing if you don't want. I think people are confused about film festivals. They have different blocks, which just means, like, this is a group of films, this is a group, or, like, opening night will be a feature. And so you can kind of pick and choose what you want to attend.
I think in the schedule, it's kind of color.
Yeah, and there's other satellite events that they do. Like, they're doing a Women in Film brunch, which I'll be at. There's like an opening night kickoff. I don't know if that's just for the filmmakers or not, but like there's other events that they do that kind of correlate with the festival. I'm really excited this year because they're doing a lot of PR and marketing for it. Like I'm doing actually other interviews like to kind of to promote the festival. So I'm really proud of their marketing and PR team because as a filmmaker, they're pushing us out there to talk about the festival. So this is one of so far 3 total interviews that I'm doing. And that wasn't even the reason for coming here. Like I didn't know what we were talking about when you asked me to be on the podcast. But
we never do. That's how
it is. No, and this kind of came up, and as we're getting closer to the festival, there's just a lot. Like I was just doing like a recording video for them, so they can post on social. So they're actually really trying to do a lot for the festival, which I appreciate as a filmmaker, and that I get to be a part of. I get to be a part of the process, and I get to attend events throughout the weekend for filmmakers and to meet other filmmakers, which just creates better community. And then obviously the Sleeping Giants Fest is this weekend. It'll also be premiering on Sunday at Sunray, which is where we actually had our premiere last year.
We'll have a link down below to the Jacksonville Film Festival and the Sleeping Giants.
Those are the 2 local ones that it'll be premiering at. We have a lot of festivals. Those are just 2. The Sleeping Giants is kind of a unique festival. It's really cool. It's not just film. I feel like they do other...
They love the Sunray crowd as well.
They do other things with that, but... on top of that,
food.
I'm writing a feature. So they say do 3 shorts then a feature. So I'm like, okay, time to write a feature. Also based around a story in Jacksonville. So I use place as my inspiration. Like I really pull life into what I'm doing. So Belle Isle technically was set in Detroit. But it was filmed here in Jacksonville with all local crew and cast. But Tallulah Park, the last film that I did, that is actually in the edit right now, is based obviously
in the park here in
Old Florida. So it has a I don't know what the word is, but there's a resonance to the place that we are making it. Like I use Jacksonville as a backdrop, like Old Florida as like the backdrop for the film. So like locations and vibe.
That is so cool because it's almost like the opposite from how you started when you just came here. That by contrast to LA, you just felt like, and now you actually draw.
Well, I think artists have to do that, right? You have to find inspiration where you are because you can't find it anywhere else. So if you don't get to the place where you use what's in front of you, what are you and fashion photography is not here. It's just simply not. And so the pivot was, okay, well, how can I tell stories in a way that feel personal about where I'm at? And that's why writing found me, and then acting, and then producing films. So I started a small production company after Belle Isle called Lula Films, and it was mainly a collective and mainly just a place to put the work that I was making. But now it, in a weird way, it's growing. And so there's more films being produced under there. The next will be, we're in not crowdfunding, but we're in fundraising for Floating Daisies, which is a film that I didn't write. And our AD on Tallulah Park, Dejana, was the one that actually wrote it. And it's like a similar, she's the main character. So it's kind of like what I did in Belle Isle, she's doing for Floating Daisies. And I was like, I'll direct it. And I've never directed, but I've been directing my whole life. Like, photographers are directors. So I said, oh, absolutely, I'll do that. So I'm hoping that more films can be produced underneath Lula that aren't just ones that I'm writing. It's just a place for me to put the work so that I can start to build a portfolio.
Lula.
Yeah, Lulah. So it started with Tallulah Park because that was the inspiration for it. And that place is really special to me. And so I had to shorten it. And I just like the spelling, Lulah. And it sounds really pretty and it's really personal. And it's a bit feminine, which obviously resonates, with me as a female filmmaker. But yeah, that's kind of where things are going. So I'm continuing to make films. I have agents, so I continue to do projects outside of my own. So I work on other people's projects, and my life has really taken this like crazy drastic turn, and like I'm just along for the ride. Like honestly, like I'm like, okay, universe, like do your thing.
I love it.
That's
I love
great.
it. Is it okay to share your social in the links under?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
great. So we'll do that
Everything.
too.
All right,
And
so
it's
look-
okay if someone has maybe a personal message to send
I've
you.
been a lot of filmmakers reach out. So if you are a filmmaker, feel free to reach out. If you're local here in Jacksonville, female, I've had a bunch of female filmmakers. One just recently who like graduated from Full Sail. That's like, hey, you know, I'm curious, and so like I'm always willing to talk to people or jump on calls. I love finding new talent,
That's
people
great.
that are hungry to learn. I'm still learning, so
That's awesome.
it's all about your team. So it's all about building a team of people that are passionate.
Michelle,
That's all I
thank
care
you
about.
again.
Passionate filmmakers and artists.
Well,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you guys for
so
having
much.
me. I feel like
That's
I
fine.
did so much talking, but I guess that's
I'm
what
glad,
you do on a
yes, yeah.
podcast.
Well, you mentioned you watch a lot of podcasts. I don't know if you have seen the Bill Maher podcast that he does. And
I've seen it. Yeah, I do watch a lot of podcasts.
So I very much enjoy his podcast. So
Yeah.
but when I started mine, I thought I don't want to interrupt people.
I mean, I have a
and-
lot to say. You don't have to pry it. I'm sure some people it's harder because you kind of have to pull the stories out.
Mhm.
But as an artist and a writer, it's like
Yeah.
I can express.
Yeah.
And that's what
let's-
we want. We want
Exactly.
to catalog and know where
Absolutely.
people are and what's going on in their life. And so, because we even though we're friends, we actually, every podcast we've done with people that
I'm
we
sure
already
you've
know,
learned
we learned so.
so much.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the cool part. You don't know until you sit down in this
Right,
format.
Because you don't spend an hour in any other occasion,
No.
just asking people about
Tell
what
me
they're
about
doing.
you.
Mhm.
And people always want to talk about themselves.
That's true.
You know, it's like, how do you get to know somebody? Just ask them questions about themselves. People will just
Yeah.
keep talking.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad
Glad
you
you
shared this
inspired.
with us.
Thank
and
you,
I know
guys.
it's going to be beneficial for
Yeah, I
others
hope
as
so.
well. So I'm glad we got it on tape,
Absolutely.
on virtual
An
tape.
official chronicle of Jacksonville.
So I'll hit the off button and we'll go have lunch.
Yes.
Thank
let's
you.
Do that.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining us. And
Thanks.
check those links out below, and I'll see you at the festival.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So we going to Carmen on Sunday, so most likely we're gonna miss your. But we
Oh,
saw the.
you already
but
saw it.
But we maybe we'll see you